All right, last big assignment of the school year. This is our poetry performance task. You're reading a poem to COVID-19. So, in the assignment, directions are right here. You will write a poem to COVID-19. Please follow the steps for each day to help review the poetry terms, create lines, and then write your poem. This assignment will be graded and is due on Thursday, May 14th. Here are example poems. So, when you click here, this document has 2 example poems for you that we'll go over in just a little bit. This is also linked elsewhere. Today, I'm just going to talk to you about your task for Monday. You are going to I'm going to talk through the whole thing. Watch the videos to better understand the 2 poetry techniques, figures of speech, depending. And then you're going to write 1 line of personification, 1 line of simile. And if you'd like to challenge yourself, you could do a line of onomatopoeia and metaphor for your Dear COVID poem. So you can see here there is the term personification. Here is the link to the teaching video. This is Miss Smith talking through personification, the definition, the example, and then you will write your lines here. And it is color-coded, which is cool because if we open up the example poem, I think you might as well do it the same way. I just kept the lines in the color of the term I was using, okay? So like my first line of personification is in that reddish color, all right? So that's Monday's. The very first thing you'll do. The next thing will be to look at simile. The teaching video is here. Miss Smith, again, she does a great job talking through comparing 2 different things using like or as. She gives an example using like. She gives an example using as. I actually think it's easier to do as, but do whatever you want. You're just going to write 1 line here on the right side for your line, okay, of simile. So pick. I'm either going to do it using the word like or I'll do it using the word as. The other 2 options for Monday are onomatopoeia. So those are those sound words. I give a good list here. Whisper, flutter, screech, thud, ball, bang, grunt. I actually have a, I will put a link in there to a good website. I thought I had one in there. And then there's an onomatopoeia video here that you can watch that has a ton of great examples. The example written there is the clicking of my keyboard makes my head thud on my desk as I let out a grunt. So I was trying to kind of think along the lines of COVID as I created the examples using those words. There's always, bang, pow, those classic onomatopoeia words, but they might not work or they may work depending on how you're crafting your poem. The final option for Monday is metaphor. So metaphor is like simile, is similar to simile, except in metaphor, you're actually saying that 2 things are the same thing. The masks are my hidden feelings. Social distance is a dream come true. For some people it is, for some people it isn't, right? But life is a highway from that song you may have seen in Cars. That is a metaphor. So it's using is, am, are, was, were, or sometimes a comma to separate, okay? And there's a metaphor video here for you too from YouTube. So not a teacher video, but just a kind of example there. Again, those grayed out ones are optional. Those you'll see later on are in the 3.5, 4.0 portion of the rubric to get an even higher score on this assessment. All right. For Tuesday, you're going to, again, watch the videos, and then you're doing hyperbole and alliteration for your My COVID poem. So just like we did with compare and contrast, we're trying to break into small chunks each piece of this so it's not too overwhelming, and then you're just kind of putting it all together at the end. The teaching video for hyperbole is here, and that's me talking about hyperbole. I love hyperbole because I do use it all of the time. And so do you probably, because that's extreme exaggeration. Then you have your alliteration teaching video from Mr. Meme here, and he gives a lot of good definition and examples in his. You'll write a line for hyperbole, you'll write a line for alliteration, and these don't look like they're the right color, so I'll make sure they're the right color before I post them. Optional for Tuesday is imagery. So imagery is a little bit trickier because it's not like you just use a word and it's very clearly imagery. It's really where you're bringing in the 5 senses. You're showing, not telling, a lot of what we practice for our narrative when you wrote your ending to the ravine, okay? And you can look at the helpful hints here the examples and the definition. And the final optional 3.5, 4.0 level choice for Tuesday is mood. So you're creating a feeling for the reader. Maybe it's optimistic, maybe it's pessimistic, maybe it's sarcastic, maybe it's frustration, maybe it's contentment. So just that I can kind of get an overall feeling from your poem, that would be mood. Again, kind of a tricky thing, but I think if you're careful with your wording, to make sure you're staying on the same point, you're not like happy and then sad and then crazy. You want to have a common kind of theme in the way it feels for people, okay? Wednesday, you have advisory and you can catch up. Thursday, you're going to take all of those lines and craft it into a poem. So you may just have Dear COVID, which really is your first line here, and then those 4 lines you wrote as a minimum. Maybe you add a couple of extra lines to tie it all together and you're still just doing those 4 main terms, or maybe you create an even longer poem. So let's look at the examples really quickly here. So the first example is mine, and you can see how the colors match where it came from. So for this very first section here, I have personification. So it would have been what I typed in this section here, and then I pasted it under Dear COVID, and I added the words thank you. Dear COVID, thank you for closing all our doors, for touching us all like the invisible wind, for landing like a thud in my heart each time I open my computer instead of opening the creaking door of my locker. I can't stand being stuck in my home, bored to tears. I miss talking, teasing, and touching my friends. Dear COVID, thank you for showing me that normal is extraordinary. So I tried to make sure the colors kind of matched where it came from in the poem, but sometimes I have simile as well as onomatopoeia. So just your best judgment. I'll be able to tell what you have, and if I can't, I'll ask you a question what you meant a certain line to be. But you can see that I added in, for a couple of these, I have 2 lines of I have 2 lines of personification. I added in the thank you, Dear COVID, thank you. I have some repetition there, and I just kept that black because it was extra, but it also helped me kind of put my poem all together. Okay? A second poem we have here, Miss Houston wrote, and it doesn't necessarily follow the lines or the requirements as well, but it is a beautiful poem. So it says, COVID, you are the sneaky thief who snuck into our lives and stole our normal. So this to me is personification. It's talking to COVID and giving it human characteristics to do these things. Also, maybe a little metaphor here. You are the sneaky thief. Next, you are so stealthy, shared through saliva and a cough, cough, cough. So she has repetition in here. Again, personification. And she has a lot of alliteration throughout this, a lot of those S words, right? Sneaky thief, sneaky, snuck, stole, stealthy, shared, saliva, summon, surgeons. You summon our surgeons, our doctors and nurses to be the new superheroes. You summon us and our resolve to care for one another, to live and breathe free again. So you can see 2 very different versions of a poem using some of these skills. If you feel like you're struggling a little bit with simile, but you have a great metaphor, go ahead and swap those out. I'm fine with that. So let's look again, at Thursday. You figure out how you want to put those lines in order. You're going to copy and paste them down here, and you may be adding extra. Read it out loud to yourself. Make sure it sounds good. I revised mine quite a few times, and I would say, what do you think about this word, to the other language arts teachers, and have them give me ideas for synonyms or other words to put in place of that. So use the resources you have, and you can always check in with me for office hours, okay? Make sure you have those main requirements of personification, simile, hyperbole, and alliteration. Look at your rubric. So the rubric is here, and basically it's if you have those 4 elements and it's well written, you'll be in good shape. So personification, I created a simile, I created hyperbole, I created alliteration, and this gives little hints of what those are for the rest of the definition or the descriptors. And then my poetic techniques and figures of speech create a poem clearly expressing my feelings on the topic. and I use mostly correct grammar, capitalization, spelling, etc. Okay, that's a 3.0. For a 4, you're adding imagery or mood, onomatopoeia, metaphor, and you have really perfect grammar. Okay. Final step, what after you turn this in, if you would like to, and I would love, is to have you share your COVID poem on Padlet. So when you click here, you will have the link to our class Padlet, and it's a new topic. I'll come back to that in a second. And then we also have a Flipgrid. So it is kind of cool to see people read their own poetry. So you could use Flipgrid to do this. I started one for you. So you can see me reading the poem I just read to you that I wrote earlier this week. Here is the Dear COVID poem, and you can see mine right there. And if you would rather type it out or copy and paste it into Padlet to share it that way, you can do that instead. You could do both. You can do whatever you like. But it's really cool for us to be able to share these things we're creating. Also might be really a neat idea to copy and paste this and make a new slide in your virtual time capsule. Great thing to remember. So let me know if you have questions. I'm talking for too long, so I want to wrap this up. If you have any questions about the week, individual parts of this, or the whole thing, feel free to come to office hours this week from 1 to 2. All right, I will see ya. All right, I'm here to talk to you about the Team 610 Poetry Performance Task with support. So this will be due this Thursday. It's your last major assignment for language arts this school year. So pretty cool. This is set up the same way the compare contrast essay was set up, with one document. It's broken into chunks. What you need to do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, turn in. Okay. So to begin, the directions say, in this assignment, you will write a poem to COVID-19. Please follow the steps for each day to help review the poetry terms, create lines, and then write your poem. This assignment will be graded and it's due on Thursday, May 14th. Here are example poems. So you can see the link here to the Google Doc. We'll look at that in a minute, but there's some examples to guide you. Step 1 for Monday is to watch the teaching videos. You're going to watch a teaching video on personification. Ms. Smith made this beauty. And you will watch the video on simile. She's going to walk you through the definition, the examples, and writing an example line, okay? Or writing her own line. So watch the videos and follow along with that. There are some tips in here. So for personification, the tip is to choose an object from COVID. So the example has masks, and what it has masks doing is dancing in the wind, which we know masks don't dance, right? So it's giving that characteristic of a human to something that's not human. You could think about gloves, you could think about coughs or breathing, lungs, and create some sort of action that those are doing as if they are people. So you would choose the object, then choose the action. So if it was like lungs fighting for breath, for example, the lungs are actually fighting, boom, boom, but they are working toward that. So that's how you would turn something that the lungs actually do into personification, by giving them the ability to do something they're not really doing, if that makes sense, okay? And then you would put it together. In the example, she talks about mass dancing in the wind. So here you would write the object, what action you want to connect it to, and then write out the whole line of personification. If you're really, really struggling with this, I'm okay with you skipping it, because as we're writing the letter to COVID, you're actually personifying COVID-19. You're pretending it's a person and you're talking to it and talking about what it is doing, when in fact it's just an illness and it just is existing and wreaking havoc, right? Okay. So the next step for Monday is to write your simile. So again, you have the teaching video from Ms. Smith. She does an awesome job talking about what a simile is, giving examples, and then you have a sentence frame here. So COVID, you are like a blank that blanks. Or if you wanted, you could do something like COVID, or you could say blank is as blank as something else, if as works better for you, okay? So I'm actually going to leave that in here. I'll make sure that color coding is right. So if you would rather do as for this one, go for it, okay? and you just delete out the lines and fill in the blanks. That's Monday for you. Tuesday, you're going to write one line of hyperbole and one line of simile. So the teaching video for hyperbole is one that I made. I'm just going to click this. So that for me, you don't have a quick, cute little snapshot, but let me know if that doesn't work for you. Hyperbole is extreme exaggeration, and you have a sentence frame here that you could fill in the blanks for. So think about a repeated action with something that you've done a lot during this time, or that COVID has done, or people have done over and over and over again. You're going to kind of exaggerate it. I have screamed so many times, and then the feeling would be feeling frustrated more than anyone in the world has. That would be an example of hyperbole, okay? So you can use this and use the sentence frame, or if that's not working for you, you can skip it, okay? Alliteration. The teaching video is Mr. Meme, and you can watch that there. He's going to talk to you about choosing a sound, a letter, so a consonant sound that you want to repeat over and over again. Or you can think about just a word first that you think of with COVID, which maybe it's coughing or fever. And then you would think of other words that start with that same sound and try to get 2 or 3 in a line, okay? So you can look at the examples here, and he talks about that. Choose the letter or start with a word, then put the letter there and write out your line, okay? That's your assignment for Tuesday. So that second, you're doing hyperbole and alliteration. For Thursday, so you have Wednesday off, advisory, catch up, and then Thursday, you're going to take each of those lines you had to create a poem. So you could do it in order and just copy, paste. You're pasting them down here where it says write your poem below, and it's starting with Dear COVID. So you just paste those lines. If it sounds good like that, cool. If it doesn't and you need to add a little bit more to it, go ahead and do that too. The example poems that I talked about up above, there's also the same link here, and let's look at my example. So I went through this and tried to write lines of everything that's required. So personification, hyperbole, simile, and alliteration. And it ended up adding just a little bit more to make it work for me. So mine starts out with Dear COVID, thank you. And then I started with my personification for closing all our doors. COVID didn't actually do that, but that's what it felt like. Like everyone got their door closed on them and they are stuck. For touching us all like the invisible wind. This is my simile. Touching us like the invisible wind does, okay? They're both invisible and they both have touched us in some way, right? For landing like a thud in my heart each time I open my computer instead of the creaking door of my locker. So thud and creaking, those are onomatopoeia. Those are sound words. So I wrote a sentence that included those sound words just because I kind of like the idea of including sounds in my poem. And I thought about being a student and what sounds they would be hearing now versus the sounds they heard before. I can't stand being stuck in my home, bored to tears. This is my hyperbole. I can't stand being stuck in my home. Can you really not stand it? Is it really making you crazy? Or is it just kind of frustrating? Bored to tears. Is someone actually bored to the point of crying? Probably not. Maybe sometimes. But that's kind of a term that we use to give emphasis by exaggerating how awful something is. I miss talking, teasing, and touching my friends. So I stuck with that T letter, but I thought about the things that I would do when I thought about talking to friends. Are there other T words that I would also do with my friends? And I came up with teasing and touching. Dear COVID, thank you. So I kind of repeated and included those 2 lines from the beginning for showing me that normal is extraordinary. So that again is personification, that COVID is showing me something when COVID is just existing, but I'm learning from this experience. So That's how it's personification. So that's my example poem. And I just took each of my lines, and you can see how they're color coded because the space to type is color coded in your planning document here. And so I just copied and pasted to create the whole poem. If you are struggling with this and it's tricky for you, but you could write a line of personification or you could write a line of hyperbole, just do that, okay? If it doesn't work for you to write the poem to COVID, I'm okay with that. If you'd like to write a different poem, or you just want to have those 4 separate lines and maybe it doesn't go together perfectly, that's okay. I don't want to overwhelm anyone with a tricky poetry assignment right at the end of the year, okay? So just communicate with me if this is hard for you, and if we talk about it, come to office hours, or you want to do it a little bit differently, I'm okay with that. Just make sure you let me know, okay? But this is where your complete poem will go, right down here where it says write your poem below. And then here are your rubrics. So with accommodations, I wrote a poem containing personification, simile, hyperbole, and alliteration. That just means that like maybe you had help from me, or maybe you had help from another teacher to complete this, and you were able to do it. Your techniques, poetic techniques and figures of speech, create a poem that expresses your feelings, and you use mostly correct grammar. So those complete sentences, which is sometimes in poetry they aren't so complete, capital letters and ending punctuation, okay? If you want to try and go above and beyond, talk to me and I'll give you some ideas. You could include a metaphor and I can share notes with you about that. You could have that onomatopoeia like I have, where you include some sound words. So just be thinking about that if you want to shoot for something above that 3.0, okay? After you're done, if you're feeling really proud of your poem and would like to share it, I would love that. I have a Padlet here. Whoops. Grammarly always wants to. Let me click ignore. Fix that. So a Padlet here, and you could go in and just copy and paste your poem into the Padlet so that other people can see it. I've already I put my poem in here. It's not going to look as good as it did in the Google Doc, but that's okay. And another cool way to share is via Flipgrid. So you can go into Flipgrid and just record yourself reading your poem. I did the same thing, so I'm the very first grid down here. And that's a really great opportunity for all of us to get to kind of share in this poetry experience, which we normally would have in school that we haven't had right now. Thanks a lot, COVID. So that is your assignment for this week, broken into small chunks. Please do the small chunks each day so that you're not getting overwhelmed on Thursday or Friday with a lot to do, okay? And remember, you can always hop into my office hours to ask me a question or have me help you brainstorm, all right? I'm here for you, and I want to help you so you can feel successful, all right? So that's it. Assignment for this week. Check in with me 1 to 2, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday for questions, or check in with whoever it is that's helping you out. And I'll see you soon.